Hi, everybody, and we are live with Bill Kieffer, who is an executive coach with, is it Kieffer and Associates?
It is, yep.
So essentially, you run an executive coaching business. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Bill. I am really excited about this session because I talk to so many people that get out of the military and want to be advisors or coaches, and I think that they don't get the full scope of what's involved in that business.
Amen.
So
Amen.
For anybody joining us today, I want to say in advance, hey, if you have questions, please drop them in the comments, and we're going to try to get to a bunch of them for Bill. I'm really excited to kind of share what his career is like. So to get started, Bill, can you talk about your path to becoming an executive coach?
I can. I've had a really weird path. I started in the military, did 12 years active duty as a Army logistics officer, mostly out in light infantry divisions, taught the officer advanced course. And I came to my career transition quite unexpectedly. I got selected for promotion to 04, and a week later found out that my marital circumstance was going to change. So I had to figure out, what am I going to do to balance career and family? I had 3 small kids at the time. So I made the only decision that was right for me, and that was to be as close to the kids as I could get. And that meant leaving the military. I walked out with no plan, no idea what I was getting into, and worked really hard to make some connections that created some opportunities that led to a really successful career as an HR and talent management leader in large, complex global companies. A couple of years ago, I decided—
Can you pause?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we dive into a little bit about that HR and talent career?
Sure.
Like, what kind of roles, how long?
Yeah, so I was 22 years into corporate America. I started, my first job was manager of training for a 1,100 person facility that did air freight here in the Midwest, global company. And I quickly grew to head of organizational development, learning and development, talent management, full spectrum talent management for the enterprise. I was there 11 years. I did HR strategy, HR metrics, talent management, the succession plan, all of it. Left there after 11 years as the global head of organizational development and HR, and went to a smaller company, $100 million company that I was privately held. Yeah, the first one was about a $3 billion company.
I was saying smaller company, $100 million company.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I quickly realized the difference between publicly traded companies and privately held companies. And I made a decision to kind of look and explore other opportunities. I got connected to Dana Corporation, the axle drive shaft, the big, about $7 billion at the time. They had come out of bankruptcy. They were looking for somebody to kind of start from scratch a renewed talent management function for the enterprise. So I was there 8 years. I was the global head of talent management. I was the head of corporate HR. So all the C-suite leads were my clients. And I was the VP of HR for the commercial vehicle group, about $1.7 billion servicing the Class 8 truck industry. 8 years there. Unfortunately, part of the business environment at that time was kind of the unfortunate annual fall firing season. We always had, redundancy exercises, whatever you call it, but we had to reduce heads. And in 2016, my number came up. I was a pretty attractive target. You save a lot of money with me if I'm gone. Right. So took some time off to deal with family. Ailing parents. At the time, the legal guardian for my older sister who had Downs. She has subsequently passed. So key point in my learning, this whole journey is not just about work. You got to pay attention to family too. I took another job for a couple of years, similar job, head of talent management for Amcor Rigid Plastics, $3 billion division of a $10 billion Australian company. And I was running talent management for them. And a couple of years in, I thought, you know what, I've had enough of this, 50 to 75% travel, 80-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks. I checked my finances and went, I'm not quite where I want to be, but you know what, quality of life, let's change. And I started the little firm I have now.
Okay, I got questions. So
Okay.
forget the executive coaching piece. Yeah,
Sure.
we'll get to that.
Okay.
What is talent management? Hold on. Every sergeant major E9 I've ever talked to getting out says, I want to go into talent management.
Sure.
And none of them have an idea what it really is in the private sector. So I'm so excited.
Okay. So talent management in the private sector kind of is what the company defines it to be.
Mm-hmm.
The classical talent management spectrum starts with, I call it strategic talent management. Some folks will call it workforce planning. But the simple point is looking at and partnering with the top leaders of the organization to understand the business strategy. Mm-hmm. What are you trying to do? What's your commitments to Wall Street if you're publicly traded? And looking at that through the lens of talent capability. Do you have the right people with the right capabilities organized in the right way to go do what you said you were going to do? That's step one. Mm-hmm. And it's really complex, and there's a lot to it. Not the least of which is sometimes educating your non-HR business partners about what all that really means. Mm-hmm. And once you figure out what it is, what is the strategy, what are the needs, then we got to figure out, well, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to go find the people? Mm-hmm. What's our recruiting plan? What's our sourcing plan? Once we figure out all that, what's the entire recruitment and selection process? And then how do we onboard them? And once we onboard them, how do we properly goal set and performance management? How do we properly deploy them so we get them in the right place to leverage the capabilities they bring to do the work we say we need done and fit well with everybody else? How do we train them to better do the job they're in? How do we develop them for future successes and business needs? How do we keep them engaged and how we keep them entertained? And at the back end, the succession planning is part of all that. Mm-hmm. And at the back end, what do we do to make sure that folks that are leaving the organization leave so professionally and with a good taste in their mouth? Mm-hmm. Because former employees are a huge contributor to whether new employees want to come. Yeah. If they leave with a bad taste, people are going to go, yeah, I don't want to work there.
So, I mean, it sounds exactly what I did as a sergeant major, right?
Sure, absolutely.
So what are the differences between what an E9 or an 05 or an 06 currently does to what you had to do?
Yeah, I think the big difference is the context you do it in. In the military, it's a particular kind of operation, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever. Whether you're infantry or armor, or whatever the unit is. But the civilian world, the business world is very different in what they're there to do and how they go about doing it. Mm-hmm. While there's many differences, culturally and behaviorally in all kinds of ways, I think the biggest difference that I found is realizing that money is the commodity of business. Mm-hmm. In the military, you had a budget, you had to take care of the budget. You couldn't spend more, you advocate, you make your plans, you do all that stuff.
But you had to spend it all in the military.
But you had to spend it all.
Yeah, like military, obligate until you spend everything. It's not like that in the private sector, right?
Yeah, no. I mean, depends on the organization, but you get bonus points for spending less than you planned. And that's the difference between revenue and profitability. What you make is a good thing. What you spend, if you spend less than planned, hey, that's more margin. Right. And that's important, especially for your publicly traded companies.
Did you need to know a lot of analytics or be involved in a lot of analytics? Like how you track your metrics for success, your retention rate, and all the other things involved. Like, was that something that was very?
The short answer is, if you want to be effective, yes.
Yeah.
If you want to be effective, yes. Now I'll tell you, there's a lot of folks out there that are doing pretty good stuff in the absence of analytics. But I don't believe truly optimize the value add to the organization or the people in the organization unless you understand how the business is being measured and what your contribution and value add is to that business performance. It was a big stream of work I did when I was with Dana's Commercial Vehicle Group. I said, you can't just do something in business because it kind of feels good. Not if you want to have long-term sustainability of the business. Mm-hmm. So I worked with the business unit president, and I said, okay, so I'm your HR guy and I'm the global talent management guy. What matters to you? Mm-hmm. and wildly paraphrasing, this is a great guy, very good leader. He goes, money. Now, people matter, but his logic was, if we're not making and keeping the right amount of money according to the commitments we made to our stakeholders on Wall Street, we wouldn't be around to provide opportunity to people.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were here, we wouldn't have the money we need to invest in people. So right away, I was like, my metrics have to focus on money.
Right.
So I went to the CFO and I said, it seems to me that these 5 or 6 or 7 metrics are money related and indicators of people impact on business performance. And we kibitzed back and forth about what was, really value added from the finance guy's perspective, who, by the way, was a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we came up with a set of metrics that, average cost to hire,
Mm-hmm.
turn time from acknowledging the need to filling the job, employee expense as a % of revenue. I mean, things like that. And a number of folks in the HR and talent management world go, well, that's kind of cold-hearted stuff. It's not really about money's the commodity of business.
We're not in business to make money for other people. Like
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a job to just hand you a check. Like at the end of the day, I think there needs to be some kind of are you bringing enough? Is your role generating or supporting the revenue generation enough to offset what your wages are? I mean,
absolutely.
If you cost me 100, but you only have a $50,000 impact on the revenue we're generating, well, I'm not giving you 50,000 of my dollars.
Right.
That's not happening.
Yeah. And, it gets to the difference between fixed costs and variable costs.
Yeah,
I mean, there are some things you got to do. They're fixed costs. It's going to cost you more than you might want it to. It will not vary. But relative to talent management, leader development, training, all those kind of things, it's really important that whoever that talent management or HR leader is has a meaningful discussion with the boss. Mm-hmm. Whatever the title, president, CEO, chairman of the board, whatever the title is, you've got to have a meaningful conversation to say, where do you value people and how do you value people? And do you understand that this ain't free?
Right.
And how much are we willing to spend on what to enable the talent capability we need to deliver the strategic objectives we promised to our investors?
Well, and I think you just said something that probably hit a lot of our transitioning service members: fixed costs or variable costs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that means?
Fixed costs don't change with your amount of production. Mm-hmm. My rent's going to be my rent no matter what it is, right? I got to pay, $30,000 a month for my little facility to go produce widgets. I'm going to pay $30,000 a month. Variable costs are those costs that do change with the amount of your production. Perhaps if you're running furnaces and mills, it's the cost for the gas to fire them. Mm-hmm. You still have to pay the debt on the equipment. You still have to pay the rent. That's not going to change. But the more you produce, the more you have to work in your foundry, the more gas you're going to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between fixed.
So how does that apply to talent management?
Really, I consider most of that stuff is a fixed cost. And it's got to be a conscious fixed cost. Are we willing to invest the expense of training and developing our people to better do the job today and better prepare them for the future? Or are we going to go, that's just a cost I don't want to spend? And that leads to another discussion. And I don't want to get too far off your path here.
Oh, keep going. I love this. Go.
But the big topic then, and one of the challenges I've had with some folks in leadership positions, I call them PIPAs. I just put a thing on LinkedIn, people in positions of authority, not necessarily leaders, but that's maybe a different topic. But the big crap, where was I going with this, Michael? It was a really good topic.
We were talking about cost and investment in people and the conversations you have with PIPAs.
Oh, yeah. So here we go. So the issue is, are we going to build talent? Mm-hmm. Are we going to bring people in the front of the funnel, the first level, and grow them? Mm-hmm. Or are we going to go buy talent? And it's a buy versus build discussion. And it's a real discussion. And neither answer is inherently wrong, but it's very different than the military.
Right.
And to your point about what's that different than maybe what a sergeant major or lieutenant colonel does in the military, you don't really get the choice to go buy talent.
No.
You get to screen the talent that's been bubbled through the funnel, a well-established, arguably best in the world kind of talent development funnel. But you don't get to go, hey, I'm just going to go buy a new brigade sergeant major. That's not how that works.
Right.
Civilian world, you get to do that.
Yeah, no, I was just talking to a VP of operations for a pre-IPO company in the tech world. And he was saying that, the military can't compete with me when it comes to talent. He's like, if I want somebody, I can give them a 100K bonus and not even blink. And that's it. Like,
right.
Here's a nice salary and 100K. And there's no service obligation,
right.
And so that's a fantastic point. And I love, that's also with what you said as far as, are we going to grow or are we going to go out there and buy or some combination? And that goes in with the talent strategy you were discussing.
No, it absolutely does. And if you're not aware of how to do the talent buy, the recruiting, the selection, the mid-range management, the executive stuff, if you're not familiar with how to do that, you're not ready to go have that talent strategy discussion, that talent management work. You're not able to do that successfully. Now, can you get most of it and learn on the fly? Sure. Maybe depends on the company. But if it's build or buy, most business leaders, in my experience anyway, they don't really have time for you to figure it all out. You better get up to speed and know what you're doing when you come.
You got to kind of get what they want and then come there ready to build an actionable plan, not, spend 6-8 months learning.
Sure.
I love it. And, so I think that this segues perfectly into what it means to be an executive coach, right? I always was challenged by this. I'm like, well, what qualifies you to coach me, right?
Sure.
And now we've got 22 years of talent management and HR experience in, public and private large businesses. So you've established that credibility. So at least to me. So
thank you.
What does it mean to be an executive coach?
Yeah. So again, like everything, there's a gazillion different definitions, but at the core, a coach is someone that you engage with to help you better do what you do today or better prepare you to do something for the future. A good coach is somebody that is in the world or has been in the world that you intend to get to. If you think of a simple kids sports team, and I love this example. Think of the 4 and 5-year-old soccer players.
Yep.
The 4 and 5-year-old soccer players are not coaching each other. They have somebody that understands soccer to help guide them along the way, to coach them. How do I do my job? What are the different jobs? How do I find ways to understand what my performance looks like? And how do I find ways to get better at my performance? Now, I'm certified through Marshall Goldsmith for stakeholder centered coaching. So if you're not familiar, look them up. Highly regarded, one of the top leaders in the world.
So funny story. One of the first articles I wrote on LinkedIn, I sent to Marshall Goldsmith.
Okay.
Very busy, popular guy. And he responded.
Oh, he's a great guy.
He literally took the time to read my article and give me feedback. Just as I was Sergeant Major Quinn, hi Marshall, I wrote this article. I'm transitioning from the military. Can you take a look and give me some feedback? And he literally said, hey, can you send it to this email address? And he sent me a response back like a day or two later, like, hey, Michael, I really liked it. Here's some things to consider if you're publishing this. It was so
awesome. Yeah.
To me, that just didn't know
he's that kind of guy.
Yeah. So
relative to the coaching work, it's important if you're going to go do something new to make some kind of a decision. Do I invest in myself to get coach, mentor, advisor? They all have particular definitions, but functionally they're used interchangeably, right? Figure out what fits. I have a particular coaching style. I'm pretty direct. That works really well with certain people. It's horrible with others. So
from my perspective, so I get you.
Yeah. And then you got to figure out how the style and your demeanors and all that match. But then you got to understand if your coach is even familiar with what you're asking. I'm a coach, I'm an executive leadership coach to help folks that predominantly work in mid and senior level positions in for-profit companies. Typically, I can pretty much work any company, but I'm best suited in manufacturing and supply chain kind of world. Can I do banking? Yes. Have I coached folks in finance? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. If you'd like a leadership coach about how to be a chief of staff at a critical care hospital, mm-hmm. I'm going to refer you to a friend. I'm not that guy. So one of the things you want to look for in a coach is, can they actually deliver what they say they can deliver? And sometimes if you're new to the coaching arena as a consumer, you don't really know how do you vet the coach. Do a little homework. You can get on, the internet's great for research. And quite frankly, trust your gut.
Yeah.
If you go, this just doesn't feel right, there's a pretty good chance it's not going to be right, because you're always going to have that doubt.
I really like that. Yeah, no, I always try to explain to people, if you're going to hire a coach, you kind of want someone that's been there and done that, mm-hmm. right? Do they have the requisite experience to guide you along that path? Mm-hmm. And I can't say it enough how important it is to really do that research before you engage with someone. And I think that was a great example. Like, you've worked in all these huge companies, but when it comes to coaching somebody as like a chief of staff in a hospital, like, you got a lot of other concerns involved with that other industry. Sure. And maybe that's not the best fit. So, so you started your business.
I did.
And, obviously Quality Life seems to be doing well. You don't seem like you're working 80-hour stressed out weeks traveling during COVID.
It's better.
Yeah. I'm sure you're still working too much like I do, but so I guess, what's it take to start? Let me go into the easy stuff. What's your day like?
So what's my day like? I'm an early riser, so I'm usually up pretty early. My wife works, so I get up when we have a little coffee in the morning. She takes off, and then I go up to my office. I'm in my office right now. Mm-hmm. I like to joke I take 2 flights a day to get to work, and 1 flight up the stairs and 1 flight back down the stairs. And I have 6 different areas that I really try to attend and organize my day around. And different days bring different balance of those things. Okay, one is just execution of already committed business. I have existing clients. I got to do the work that I promised to do, and that's preparation, and that's delivery, and so on and so forth. The other is development.
Yep.
So execution and development of new clients, prospecting and business development and reaching out and connecting with new folks. The other is development of content. Mm. And the other part I pay attention to every day, to greater and lesser degrees, is my own development. Mm-hmm. What am I doing to learn something new, to expand my capabilities? What am I doing to add to my value proposition for potential clients? The third piece is follow-up. Mm-hmm. What am I doing to follow up on the work that I've done with existing clients? Because you always got to close the loop. And what am I doing to follow up with folks who I maybe had contact yet, but they have not yet contracted? Mm-hmm. So execution, development, and follow-up are really big components of my day. The other bit, being a solopreneur, I guess you call it. I'm a one-guy LLC here with a extended network of a lot of people that I tap when I need. But I got to take care of administrative and maintenance things.
Yeah.
You got to pay the bills, you got to track your money, you got to figure out the taxes, you got to deal with scheduling, systems, and equipment. I mean, I don't have a big, robust IT staff here. So, when something goes wrong, guess what? I get to be the IT guy. When the office needs clean, guess what? I'm the janitor. When I have to work on a new client strategy for their own business growth, now I'm the strategic advisor. So execution, development, follow-up, admin, and maintenance. And then there's 2 other parts that are really important to me. Every day I make time for the family.
Right.
Whatever that means, any time of day. And public and community service is really important to me. So I make time for that every day. So those are the 6 pieces that make up pretty much every day of my life.
So you found your balance in a lot of ways. People say work-life balance doesn't mean 50-50. But if your work is more aligned with your passion, you're able to find a balance.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I actually like the word blend.
Mhm.
You know, balance almost infers opposites. You know, if I go up here, I got to go down there. I like to look at it as a blend. These are all different ingredients in the stew. And some days I need a little more salt, and some days I need a little more sugar, and some days I got to spend more time on, maintenance and admin.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I like to look at it works for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So, okay, so typical day, typical work day, how many hours, what you start, what time?
I'm usually up by 5 or 5:15. I'm on LinkedIn right away, checking emails right away while the coffee's cooking. Wife usually leaves for work about 7. I'll go take care of, morning personal hygiene stuff, and then I'm in the office typically by 7:30. And it kind of depends on what the schedule is for the day. It's a rare day when I don't have at least 2 or 3 client calls. That's either developing them as a paid client or delivering on commitments. And then the various things happen. I try diligently to take a lunch break somewhere along the line. And usually by about 4 o'clock, I'm getting done and I'm downstairs in my basement gym doing something that attempts to look like a workout.
I love it. So you were able to find some kind of a blend. And I'm sure that if you have more clients, the day extends.
Yes. One of the things that's really important to me as a coach is to be available within reason for clients. I've had clients in Belgium and Baghdad and everywhere else. I was just working with a guy out of the 75th Ranger Regiment in Afghanistan. Well, guess what? I'm not talking to him between 8 and 4. I'm talking to him when it works for him.
Right. That's another great point. So, but I want to go into the prep and delivery piece.
Okay.
So you get a coaching client, right? They want to be coached. And they say, hey, I want you, Bill. What does a typical engagement with one client look like for you, workload wise? Like, what's your process as you work through an engagement? How long does it typically last? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, every one of my engagements is customized, but the general model that we work on has 6 stages to it. The 6 stages to the model I developed, and I didn't just use it for military transition, folks. I developed with clients overall. The very first step we start with is, who are you and what do you bring into the party? It's an initial bit of assessment. Okay. Who am I? What am I bringing to the party? I won't bore you with all the details on that. And then I go, given all that, how do you define success? What are you looking for? Those that are familiar with learning and development and training methodologies, you know the ADDIE model: assessment, design, develop, implement, evaluate. It kind of follows that. So let's assess what we're really trying to do here. Who really are you? Are we playing golf or are we playing football? I mean, how do you define success? I then, when we're coaching in the context of career transition, we shift gears and say, what do you know about the transition environment? Given everything you've said, you want to be an XYZ in this kind of world, you want to make that kind of money. Well, great. Who do you know? What your connections look like? Where are you looking? Are you connected to any of the companies? So the transition environment. We also get into tools and techniques and all that stuff, but I won't bore you with all that here. Then I set them back and I go, where's the gaps? You don't have time and money to be wasting on fixing things that ain't broke. So let's find those things that are relevant to what you're trying to achieve and figure out what we're going to do to close that gap. And then the final step is really, executing, building the plan and executing it.
So how long is a typical engagement?
They all vary based on how much of all that they get. If they go just with a generic core model, it's 90 days.
Right.
Yep, 90 days.
And then how many phone calls or Zoom sessions are?
So so here's what I do in a basic. I customize all that. Some folks want more hands-on, and some folks want less. One of the things with a coach is to be able to pick up the nature and tempo of the client. But a typical package is 3 up to 90-day sessions a month, and ad hoc calls and messages as you may need them.
Right.
So, I mean, typically, I'm talking to my clients 4, 5, 6 times a month.
Right.
So
how much time it goes into preparing for a 90-minute session?
It depends. Usually, you'll go on a 4 to 1. If it's an hour, you just book 4 hours of your own work time to get ready. Because the one thing you don't want to do is walk into any kind of work unprepared.
Yeah.
And preparing in a coaching world, some of it's technical, tactical. If the need is, how do I build an elevator pitch? Okay, I get it. I can pull that. But if the need is, I am a former FBI agent who really wants to do a career pivot, and I don't really know, but I know these are the things I'm interested in. Well, now I got to do a little bit more research and really start thinking about the history, the background, the definitions of success, the characteristics that they call strengths. To go, oh, good Lord, what does that career field kind of potentially lead them to?
Yeah. No, I see that a lot with the law enforcement and, federal law enforcement and retirees. When they, are eligible for their retirement, they start pivoting, and very similar to the military transition. So 4 to 1 prep time.
Rough ballpark.
Yeah. And then you've got your delivery.
Right.
Then you've got your business development. So you've got to actually, have phone calls and send emails and develop your brand. Is posting on LinkedIn and other platforms a part of your business development strategy?
Posting on engagement on LinkedIn is my strategy. It's how I do it. I wanted to stay because I knew I was new to being a solopreneur, so I didn't want to try and dive into a bunch of ponds at once. I knew LinkedIn had been very effective for me building my own network when I was in career transition. I'm reasonably familiar with how it works, and I've learned a lot via you and others. So I chose to make that my primary method of marketing and advertising, if you will. Not as a, hey, here's a sales pitch, but as a, here's who I am and what I offer, and by throwing content out there that, I hope will resonate with folks who are looking for services that I provide.
Right.
I do have a fair amount of, public and community service I put as one of my 6 things. It's been impacted by COVID, but I do a fair amount of that kind of work with different organizations, locally and nationally.
We buy from whom we trust. I mean, at the end of the day, and trust comes from relationships. So the more that we, do things that build relationships and trust, the more when somebody realizes they need help, they say, hey, well, I know Bill and he gives back to the community. He's very active. He's a great guy. Why don't I connect you with Bill? Or you should check Bill out. I mean, that's how the world works. I mean,
it is. Absolutely.
I'm not going to a stranger unless somebody has a referral. I read reviews. They have a lot of experience. And even then, I'm having a phone call first and feeling them out. Do I get a good vibe? Do I not get a good vibe?
Right.
So no, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, not surprising because we got segued by the talent management, but that was very valuable. We're over 30 minutes already. So I want to try to keep these all under 40. So I guess a couple quick questions. One, advice for people looking to become an entrepreneur.
Understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand what you're getting into. And I think it's really important to figure out 3 things. First is, what are you passionate about? Second is, what qualifies you to do that? And third is, why would anybody want to pay you to do it?
Yep.
If you can answer those questions, realistically, and you can answer them in a way that goes, yep, that meets my definition of success, you're heads and tails beyond a whole lot of folks that dive into this entrepreneurial world.
I would add, just run it by some people to make sure you're not in an echo chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a lot of, I remember in my transition spending 2, 3, 4 hours on Indeed, Monster, saying, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And I started off in one career field industry. And 2 hours later, I'm in a completely different industry, completely different career field. And I'm still saying I can do that. But yet when I sent out resumes, nobody else thought I could do that. And so huge challenge.
Yeah. I mean, self-perception and what the world sees of us, those are 2 different things.
Yeah. I guess the next step would be, if people have questions based on this interview, can they reach out to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. LinkedIn. I have a website, www.kieffer-associates.com. Two easiest, quickest ways. I've got a Calendly link right on my profile on LinkedIn. So if you go, yeah, I want to talk and I'd also like some time, it's right there in the About section. You can click
Awesome.
it and get time.
And then I guess I have a large transitioning military audience. So number one tip for them to determine or to create a successful transition for themselves, to find
start now. Okay. Tomorrow is too late. It's like in investing for retirement. Every little bit of work you do now is going to create compound interest for your success later. So start now. Single biggest.
And how long would you say a successful transition typically takes? I got to add another one. So sorry.
That's okay. I typically say 18 to 24 months. Depending on what kind of job you want to get in the market and the particulars, it can take you 6, 7, 8, 9 months to actually land a job. Mm-hmm. But you don't land a job till a whole lot of things happen before that landing. Yeah. And you don't even get good at figuring out how to look for a job until you've done a whole lot of work before that.
I love that. I mean, for a lot of companies, you could be getting you hit submit on the resume and you could be the best candidate and you might not start for 2 to 3 months. Mm-hmm. Just to go through the interview process, the job offer process, set up the onboarding date and everything else like that. I don't think people really take that into consideration. I typically say 2 to 3 times longer than you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
So if you think it's going to be like, I'm going to go all in at the 1 year mark, you probably should have started at 2 because so great advice. Well, Bill, it was great to finally catch up. I know we,
likewise,
kind of integrate a lot on LinkedIn and have commented on each other's stuff. So I really appreciate your insight, your time this afternoon, and I hope we get to catch up again in the future.
Likewise, Mike. It was a pleasure. It's great chatting with you, man.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.